Let's get to work. All right, so we got a little bit of a gap down. We had the Federal Reserve yesterday. I know it looks like it was like some big market crash, but the market was really only down like 1%, give or take. So, in the end, we did. Looks like it was like whoa. So in the end, we're kind of at a weird spot. We're sitting right on the 50 SMA on the QQQs. So we have two different things that are kind of in conflict here, right? After the Fed came out, they were like basically, hey, we may do some tapering. Now, what the fuck tapering really means is beyond my pay grade. But essentially, it just means that, right, the money they're flooding into the market, they may be reducing it slightly over time, not even right stopping it. But that did put a little bit of a sell off because, as you guys probably know, right, this is like, we've had essentially like a big run up over the years from a little bit of what we call, monetary inflation. So now we've got a gap down, but we're sitting right at the 50 SMA. We haven't had a test of the 50 SMA in quite some time. So like our first plan has to be to try to bounce this fucker. For a hot second, we don't really know how this kind of tapering and stuff really is going to impact the market. But when you're sitting there and you haven't tested the 50 SMA in like months, right? That's usually like on a gap down. The first inclination is let's try to bounce this motherfucker, right? Sorry for the swearing. So that's what we'll try to do at the open. And then, you can see it here on the SPY too. And the SPY, if you really look at it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Man, you have 5 times like on the 50 SMA. So like our natural tendency and my natural tendency, like you see a gap down like this, right? And, we're kind of thinking like, oh shit, the close yesterday is too short. But we do have like a proper evidence, right? That like we do like to bounce off these levels. And so we'll have to be real mindful. Look at this. Like, so we really have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now, no level holds true forever, right? So the more times you test the level, obviously it gives it more credence that level is something that's important. But over time, as you keep testing a level, the velocity of bounces and stuff start to fade off. So we do have to know that like not every time is the same time, but we have proper evidence that we will get a bounce here. So there's a couple things that we can do right off at the open, right? If we think that if we see the signs that this gap is going to fill, and this ain't easy, this type of trading, right? This ain't easy, this type. It's much more easy when you're at all-time highs and you don't have to look at the market. But we'll have to see, right? So what we want to do is look at a small time frame. Once the low is made, we look and see if it starts to hold. Then when it takes out the opening range, that's when we come in and we start adding some longs, okay? When you do this, there's a couple different ways you can do it. Of course, you can just go with stocks that are also sitting on big support, right? Because those will give you some big ranges. So we have a whole host of those kind of names that we can do. The secondary part that you can do is you can just take, right, an ETF. So like SSO is the 2x ETF of the SPY because SPY will move a little bit slow. So you can use SSO. The 3x ETF is the SPXL. It's like a little bit more levered. So what that means is if the SPY moves 1%, this will move 3%. If the SPY moves 2%, this will move theoretically 6%. Now, the only problem with these kind of things is, back in the day, they gave you the same margin as they did on the SPY. So really, like you could be like, say, on margin 2x, and then you have this that's 3x. So now you're getting 6x. And that's when, you can really have some fun, right? But now they take the margin off these things where you can basically just play with how much cash you have in the account. So, sometimes you may just want to be hitting it with, the regular SPY or so on and so forth. Dun, dun, dun. Let's see. I think we roll. We can just long these ETFs for a hot second if we need a quick one. You know, you can see the Qs is on 50 SMA. The SPY looks a little bit cleaner. And then you've got the Dow, right, sitting on the 50 SMA also. And then the IWM is sitting, you know, really on the 200 SMA. And then you have kind of some price support over here. So that's why I'm starting to think, you know, we do a quick little bounce here, and then we'll see what's up, right? We want to see if we start to get any action on the fade. So let's talk about just some stocks that are sitting on some support, you know, that we could, you know, potentially play. So we have like a stock like this ENPH, just down like $50 in the last few days. You're sitting right on the right on the 200 SMA. So like that is something, right, you theoretically, right, could play. You have TTD. This one is sitting from 90 down to 75. That's sitting right on the 200 SMA also. So that's like an easy, happy-go-lucky location. The big thing, like when you're looking for these, is like, okay, what's the location? Yeah, that's nice. You know, so this is going to be one of those, right? You start to fill the gap, it goes red to green. That's like a nice, it's a liquid play. You know, one of the things is like, you know, something like an ENPH is a little bit less liquid, where TTD, you're going to have like a lot of liquidity on it. I don't really, when the market gets really nasty like this too, like I'd stay away from like a lot of 30 stocks. Yeah, I mean, you know, you probably catch a little bit of a run on them, but there's going to be more than enough. There's going to be a more than enough location. My mom's messing me. See, this is like, you know, you're starting to get really oversold on all these. So these are things that, you know, to be mindful of. But like for me, I think we want to go in with something that's like a little bit more, right? A little bit more extended on the downside, like if we're going to try to do a bounce. So these are like just different things to do. I do have a 200 SMA scan here too. You guys can take this. It's 200 SMA remount scan. Hold on, but you're going to have to change the parameters a little bit. Give me 1 second here. Yeah, those are all junk. Good. Sanoa's got some heat on it too. Now let's take a look at the general gapper. So look on the non-gapper side, what we want to do is just think, okay, we'll use some ETFs and then we'll see what's up. And then we've got ENPH, Roku, and I think TTD is the cleanest one out of them. Let's take a look at the gappers for today. Yeah, somebody mentioned SONA. This is not really, you know, my particular cup of tea, but, you know, this is going to be, you're clearing out some levels here. We have had every day one type of, you know, one type of small cap really make a run on them. They have been a little bit trappy. What I mean by trappy is like, what was the one from yesterday? PMCB. What I mean by trappy is like, you have, this is, to me, this, like this area, like when stocks do this, like we're just sitting in range, breaking over the VWAP under, like this kind of action. That to me is like super trappy, but it's also the hardest type of action to trade because like, you know, you end up getting your balls chopped off here. And then like the last like 5 minutes of the day, like it goes up and you're like, you just spent, you know, you just spent like hours trying to bounce this thing. That's not, that to me is not really, you know, playable. And you can see like VRPX did the same thing yesterday, right? Whereas like, okay, like it's starting to curl up and then back down and the end of day two, right? Like you're like, okay, let's get a squeeze. And it did squeeze, but your timing, because they're not trenders, your timing has to be just so absolutely perfect. And how many of you guys are really that good at traders where you can have perfect timing? Maybe, right? Like a handful of small percent can handle that kind of right range where sometimes it's easier. Like if you just have like $100 stop, you can put a damn dollar stop loss or whatever, right? And you catch what you catch and you don't have to necessarily worry about it. These kind of stocks, they can make you a lot of money. but the amount of people I've ever met in my life that actually have the ability to trade them, even people that have been trained by me, is a very, very small percentage. So that's just the nature of the game. So you can play this. We'll watch it. We'll play it if we see it. But, I wouldn't make that like your main focus today. Now, this D-local, that's not bad. I don't know what kind of liquidity is going to be in this. Like you can see here, you've got about 70,000 shares in volume right now. You really would like to see, right, some more popping into this due to the location of the market, having something that's going to have like a lot of liquidity. Like if this thing doesn't fire off, and you can do this, guys, like this is an easy way to just, fire off and see like, what kind of liquidity is it. So take your chart, like do edit chart properties if you ever want to. And what you can see here is you've got like all this stuff on your chart, right? So see where you say color bars here? You can add a color to your chart, right? So what you can say is like you can add a condition, for example. You can add a condition that'll say like, okay, you can do whatever it is that you want, right? So you can actually put a scan on top of your candles. But like say you wanted to do, where like each one of your candles, you want to see if any of them hit 300,000, right? 300,000 in volume, for example. What you can do is add a condition, and this is a little bit maybe next level for some of you guys. You can add a condition in here. And so now, right, you'll have a color 300K liquidity is true. And now what's going to happen is like at the open, if you get candles coming on the 5-minute class, on the 5-minute chart, where you have at least minimum 300,000 shares in liquidity, then the candle will start turning a different color. So like, you can see like what'll happen is see this, you can like, so you can do this with any kind of stock and you can keep the liquidity at whatever you want, but that helps you. So I use that on a different chart. You may see some different colors sometimes. So that what that'll do is like, if you're trading at the open and you're like, man, am I going to have enough liquidity or not? You can do something like that, and that'll kind of keep, and you can even put this as a scan. So like, if you say like, hey, I want to see a candle range of 2% or something like that, you can do that. And now you'll start to be able to really decipher from all your charts, what has more potential than others. Just a little fun fact of the day. INAV. This is another one that actually is this. Oh, it's an acquisition. Fuck it. UVXY. So see this, because I put that scan on it, you'll have 300,000. So you can do this with like 1 million or whatever. And what that'll also do is like, say you've got a bunch of just solid colors like this, and then, right, the colors start to change. It'll essentially tell you is, hey, the volume is increasing, right? Like, oh shit, like I've got an influx of volume coming in. And change around. I just made up 300,000 because it was there, but that'll give you like a clue too. Like, fuck, man, I got a breakout coming. And if the candles start turning white, like shit, the volume is starting to pour in. Now we're going to be, really shredding. So just a, little fun fact of the day. Hey, UVXY, these things are untradeable for the most part. I'd probably leave that alone. Dun, 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 dun. Pixie, junk. Drip. This is an oil short ETF. When your gapper scan is just showing ETFs, never that good of a sign. OTRK, this thing's a big turd. Man, this thing used to be $100. They lost all their contracts. Yeah. It's getting down 40% already. Pass. VPRX, fuck that thing. NNOX. You know what? This is going to be another one. Like, we may get a short on this. Like, it looks like, they've got maybe their earnings out, but it's going to be a little bit low liquidity. Probably pass. VSCO, I'd pass on that too. Hey, Hood had its earnings out, and they swings the Q2 loss despite revenue boost. Dude, the whole fucking world has been using Robinhood the last year. Like, how can you not make any money? You're fucking off your phone app. down 7%. I don't even know if we have borrows on this. Probably a leave alone. Beaky, do you love me? Do you want me? Man, Beaky 18. I love this thing too. Beaky. Pass. A lot of these we normally would play, but I think we need liquidity right now. Now let's look at BNTX mRNA. They both had dead cat bounces and are starting to fade back under their MAs. If we need a nice easy short with range, this is where we go. Because like if you see here, BNTX, you had that 1 day nice squeeze into the 9 and you're starting to roll back over. The ATR on this is 44, right? ATR on it's 44, meaning you could trade this thing with even 100 shares back and forth, and you have potential to make thousands of bucks using with how much ATR it has. The higher the ATR, right, the more range it's going to have, but also the more stress you're going to have because it may move around too much. So you want to make sure that you don't oversize these things. You know, even myself, if it's just a normal setup, 200, 300, if it's a grade A setup, then 500, 400 to 500. But that's about it. Like you don't really need to try to do this with 1,000 shares because you'll have, right? You already have, so let the range work itself out. So you can see this thing is already starting to bleed down. And you have a nice kind of 2-day base here that you can take this down. And mRNA and BNTX are easy to borrow too. So you shouldn't have really any, right? Any big kind of doohickeys on trying to be able to get in and out of these things. So keep an eye on this level here. You know, if you start to break under, you'll be good to go. You can see this thing is good. Now, let's talk about just, you know, regular non kind of PR plays. So we want to do, let's just go from top to bottom. If we're going to try to bounce this thing for a hot second, right? So on the SPY, we can use SPXL, right? You're going to have enough range on this. This should move a few bucks. On the QQQs, you're on the 50 SMA too. We can do TQQ. TQQ's always got good range on it when the market gets a little bit wild. On the stock side, we got TTD. Easy enough. Like you don't got to get any too cute with that. Good. Those are our bouncy bounces. You know, if you want to get a little bit more, you know, a little bit more dangerous, you could try DOCU, but I feel like the range ATR is really good on this, but the liquidity is dried out. You can see kind of how it's like spiky McGee these days. PLTR had a big day yesterday, and it's actually gapping down. It's gapping right down back into support, which is really good. Like it's, you know, then we could just try to like run this thing back again. And it had a little bit of a volume pop, 100 million shares. It's got the liquidity we need. Also, a MARV that's good. A JR that could work. Hold on, let me get to that in a sec. This will have the liquidity you need too. So if we got to go bounce life, this one also I think will be just fine. I think this one is sponge worthy. UPSD is a daily trader for us at this point. At this point, it's grinding higher. Like we can only hit this on dips, but you can see like it's right back where it's opening is where it's, you know, where its move started yesterday, which is always important. So you can see like, you know, the move started really in this range here, right? Like 205, 210. And now we're right back into it. So we've got a like kind of nice location where we can manage our risk off this thing. UPST, by the way, works really good on red to greens. Like anytime it's been showing weakness lately, it's been working pretty good. So I think like, you know, we can come up with that. And then we've got, you know, Roblox has had a really nice day yesterday. You're kind of gapping back down into its range. You know, so you haven't seen like this is where the move started, right? The kind of 9 EMA right there. So you're kind of gapping down right back into that. That's also potential for a red to green. Not as clean as like what I personally like, but you know, what are you going to do? And then SQ. SQ is a hot. So SQ is sitting right on a nice support too. You got 286 down to 285. It's also got the liquidity we need, the range we need, you know, all that fun stuff. Actually, that, you know, that and TTD, I think, look the two cleanest for us. What are we missing? Good. Another thing you can do, you know, an easy thing to do, like when you're looking for bounce candidates, you know, do like a 5-day scan. And then what you do is flip the scan so that you see like what's like the most oversold, right, of the last like so many days. And that'll give you like a really nice location. So if you go in, right, you can do like 5 days, 30 days. So like say you wanted to find something that's really oversold, right, on a 5-day basis or 30-day basis, you can look for essentially these kind of rubber band trades, right, that are like really down like 5, 6, 7, 10 days in a row. Those can tend to give good bounce candidates too, but they're a little bit more of a tricky type of trade. I kind of like trying to try them off the MAs because it just gives us a nice location. PFE, I don't know. I think it looks okay, but if it breaks under the 9, definitely JR, but not only if it breaks under the 9. Otherwise, leave it alone. Liquidity, liquidity, liquidity today, peoples. That's going to be the name of the game for us. mRNA, BNTX, SQ, TTD, those are our fave. We've got our ETFs, and if you're feeling like really froggy, then you could try to play SONA like a nice degenerate. You don't have to be a degenerate. That's a choice. And then, of course, we got PLNTR to go. Everything else, man, is so suspect. I would, you know, we don't even need any of this stuff for the most part. Everything today will move together. Hey, this SC had a good earnings breakout too, right? If we need, you know, if we need a little juice, we can always go with, you know, SC also. Hey, some of these like Bitcoin stocks, like, you know, BTBT can. You know, coin is obviously the best out of the group, you know, so if you ever need and this is also on a big support. So that's just something you can be super mindful. Hey, Haza, dude, I'm so into Solana and Solcoin. Man, I had so much of that fucking thing at 32 bucks just 2 weeks ago. I sold it early like a chode. I almost threw up when it hit 80 bucks. I sold my last 800 at like 55. I was going to throw up when I walked out. I'm like, oh my God. I got thousands of that thing too. Dun, 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 dun. All right, so we got SQ also. SQ. Okay. SQ. BNTX, mRNA. This is the list, guys. I'm sticking to it. Liquidity, 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 range. You don't need that many, you know, small caps and stuff like that. Daniel, man, I've just had maybe the biggest run I've ever had in cryptos the last month. There's nothing to say except they're hot. I'll make a video though. I got to get ready to trade. That's the list, guys. I'm sticking to it.